Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur
Bhakti, Swami, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Iskandi Viti, Foundation of Divine Grace and Prabhupada ki, Namasarya Sriya Haridasa Kaur ki, Kim Sivaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Shri Radha Krishna, Gopa Gopinath, Shamakunda Radha Kunda, Giri Govardhan ki, Sri Vrindavan Dham ki, Sri Dwarka Dham ki, Sri Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Sri Navadip Mayapur Dham ki, Sri Mayapur Chandradhar Mandir ki, Gangamayi Jamunamayi ki, Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki, Harinama Sankirtan ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki, Transcendental Distribution ki, Jai Shri Shri Ganetai ki, Jai Shri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki, Jai Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Jai Shri Giri Govardhan ki, Jai Shri Sri Radha Madhava ki, Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Abhirabhav Tithi Mahamahotsav ki, Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Abhirabhav Tithi Mahamahotsav ki, Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Appearance Festival ki, Gaur Purnima ki, Jai Nitai Gauri Premanande. All glories to the Assembled, all glories to the Assembled. All glories to the Assembly. All glories to Sri Guru to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Sri Guru. Share this here. Share, right? Share. Share. So always be all through the healthy residual. Yeah. It's okay. Ajnanatimirandasya Gyanjanashanakaya Chakshurumritam jena tasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Navadistam Stapitam jena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapamantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Gita Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavam Sri Rupam Sarvajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vikantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditam Vishya Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinadando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tatakam Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrisharanusute Dhanamame Haripriye Kanchakalpatarindesha Vipasindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Shri Surabhyaya Namaha
Om Shri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Shri Surabhyaya Namaha
Om Shri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Shri Surabhyaya Namaha
Om Shri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Mukhaṁ karoti vāsalam pāgum mangayate girim Yat kripatamaham bandhe Shri Gurum Vinataram Yat kripatamaham bandhe Shri Gurum Vinataram Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome everyone. Some guests we have not seen for quite some time. Hare Krishna. We have a little competition, so we have to be a little more attentive to what we will be hearing. Krishna is very kind. Hare Krishna. To give all of us an opportunity to be here at Sri Krishna, Sayari Sri Krishna Kshetra, on this very special occasion of Guru Purnima. No need to translate. If there is, somebody can do it privately or something, whatever. You work it out. So on this very special day of the appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by the mercy and only by the mercy of His Divine Grace, His Bhakti Swami, Sri Prabhupada, hundreds and thousands of devotees all over the world are celebrating. Was in a small place, not so small, called Shimoga, where they actually celebrated Lord Purnima yesterday. And next week in Manipal they will also celebrate again Lord Purnima. Our youth center in Manipal. We were discussing how before the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the subject matter of what we often refer to in our Krishna consciousness movement as love of Godhead or Krishna Prema was something very hidden, very less known by the vast majority of people. Even in our disciplic succession, just a very few personalities, Vaishnavacharyas, who appeared before the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were making reference to this most elevated subject matter of the very exalted, confidential pastimes of Sri Radha and Krishna. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Navadvip Dham, Sri Mayapur, for the specific purpose of revealing to the world this very confidential and deep subject matter, which is of course referred to in such literatures as the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. But never before the advent of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had this topic been spoken about so widely. Never before had this topic been studied so deeply. Never before had this topic been researched so extensively by the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. And that is why when Srila Prabhupada traveled to the Western countries in 1965, when we read his the poem that he has written, Srila Prabhupada having taken birth in a Vaishnava family, having been introduced to the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, having been to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur, knew very well the confidential nature and the depth of the subject matter that he referred to, of course, as Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada quickly understood the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was and continues to be to deliver to the most fallen people of Kali Yuga is the highest level of transcendental realization. It is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, following his father, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, as we know. He is known as the pioneer for introducing the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the Western world, to the Western countries. And his observation, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur wrote very extensive, many literatures on the subject matter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and what he to the world. And that when all will know the content of the literatures written by such great personalities as Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur and other Vaishnavacharyas, then there will be a complete transformation in the world. That although Kali Yuga comes at different intervals to accommodate the most fallen souls, the most sinful personalities actually appear in Kali Yuga. And generally in ordinary Kali Yugas, one does not receive this kind of opportunity of coming in contact with this highest of all knowledges of Krishna consciousness. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his mission, which began 500 years ago, is actually meant to bring about a total transformation. We could say a new age, completely a new age. An age of Satya Yuga, which is also referred to as the golden age. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, as we know, is referred to as the golden avatar because of his bodily complexion. So there is a very profound event taking place in the world today, of which all who come in contact with this movement, with the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, have a rare opportunity to become part of. I'm sure many of you have heard various testimonies of devotees who came in contact with these teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada, and how from the very beginning lives have been transformed. And this transformation of hearts, in the Srimad Bhagavatam it is referred to as a change of heart, continues to take place today, which is a testimony to the potency of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Never before has there been such explanation and examples as well of personalities, and this has been ongoing. If we simply read the wonderful pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago, so many of his associates, they were themselves an example of the transformation that can take place, that must take place actually in an individual in order to become freed and liberated from the miseries of this material world. Unless one receives the topmost knowledge of who he is and what is the nature of this material world, and how to actually become totally freed from what is binding all of us in this material world, which are the modes of material nature. It is not sufficient simply to rise to the Brahma Bhuta platform. Brahma Bhuta prasanatma na sochati na kanchati. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, those who are fortunate to realize Brahman, they can come to that platform of na sochati na kanchati, no hankering and no lamentation, unaffected by the dualities of the material world, and situated in what is called Brahman realization, Brahmananda. There is an ananda, there is a happiness that one can experience, that one derives actually by understanding that one is not this body but a spirit soul. But that actually is only the beginning. That is only the beginning. And therefore, personalities like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was a great impersonalist, and as we know through the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had first come to Jagannath Puri, taking darshan of Lord Jagannath for the first time, he was so immersed in ecstatic emotions that he fell unconscious, and he
was so deeply absorbed in ecstasy that practically his life symptoms disappeared, and the local pandas thought that he had left his body. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who came to the scene, could understand that this personality is in very, very deep ecstasy, and had brought Lord Chaitanya to his home. And we know the whole Leela of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya feeling compassion upon this young sannyasi. Lord Chaitanya was just 24 years old, had just taken sannyas very recently. So feeling compassion, he had offered to explain to him the subject matter of Vedanta, and had done so for several days, practically 1 week. During this whole period, Lord Chaitanya was sitting motionless, simply hearing, because there was no reaction, seemingly, from Lord Chaitanya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya requested, or rather asked, I've been speaking for so many days on the subject matter, and you don't seem to understand the subject matter, this deep subject matter of Vedanta. Then Lord Chaitanya replied, actually, I understand the subject matter of Vedanta, but I don't understand your explanation. I cannot follow your explanation. And then, of course, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was very surprised, because he was the most erudite scholar. He had so many followers, so many disciples. Therefore, he requested, then okay, you explain Vedanta. So we know from Srila Prabhupada example that Vedanta can only be explained when you put Bhakti before. Therefore, Bhakti Vedanta. Bhakti Vedanta. Prabhupada would say many people claim to be scholars of Vedanta, but when you omit the Bhakti element, which is the essence of Vedanta, then you're not actually Vedantist. In India especially, the word Vedantist is generally, referring to those who speak about Vedic philosophy minus the Bhakti element. Bhakti element meaning this whole dimension above Brahman realization. And this is a unique feature of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That there is something beyond Brahmananda. There is something beyond Brahman realization. And even to this day, especially in India, because India is the land of Vedanta, the land of Dharma, you see. But even to this day, the vast majority of people are still not understanding this dimension, this higher dimension, this deeper dimension of Vedanta. Vedanta actually means end of all knowledge. But end of all knowledge, if the Bhakti element is absent, then it is not complete. So therefore, beyond Brahmananda is Premananda. Prema. Love. Love of Krishna, love of God. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Tulise Namaha. That is a special feature of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, it's very interesting when we study writings of Srila Jiva Goswami, one of the foremost Vaishnavacharyas, one of the foremost of the Goswamis. Actually, he became, Rupa and Sanatan, of course, were the foremost, because they were the eldest and they were the first who went to Vrindavan. And they were the teachers and the preceptors. But when they disappeared, actually, Srila Jiva Goswami, he became prominent and he became accepted by all of the Vaishnava communities as the greatest philosopher of all times. And he remains today, actually, the greatest of philosophers, because, especially in one of his very well writings of the Sat Sandarbhas, he very nicely reveals things that were before. He explains how the author of the Vedic literatures and the author, the compiler of Vedanta, Srila Vyasadeva, although Vedanta means the end of knowledge, he went beyond. He went beyond the end of knowledge. He went beyond the topmost knowledge, which is given in the Bhagavad Gita. And Srila Jiva Goswami reveals how this is the nature of tattva, that Srila Vyasadeva, being himself an incarnation of the Lord, he is the literary incarnation of Godhead. It's amazing, actually. He explains, Srila Jiva Goswami, in the first of his Sat Sandarbhas called Tattva Sandarbha. Tattva Sandarbha. Tattva means to establish what is what. To establish the truth, the highest truth. So he establishes that actually the author Srila Vyasadeva, by writing the Srimad Bhagavatam, revealed knowledge that was not revealed before. Revealed knowledge of the absolute truth that is practically absent or not at all present in the Vedas, in the original Vedas. And he establishes that actually it is more important for us, and that is one of the okay, just want to keep track of the time here. Yeah. He establishes that actually the Srimad Bhagavatam, and this is an important aspect of the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu emphasized how important, how essential are these teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because within the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very, very deep and confidential knowledge on the subject matter of Krishna Prema. Prabhupada one time was explaining how, we all know, of course, how Bhagavad Gita is what brought so many of us to Krishna consciousness in the early days, because there were no other books, practically speaking. And Bhagavad Gita is Vedayasya sarvar aham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavit eva chaham. The essence of Bhagavad Gita is Krishna. The end of all knowledge is Krishna, as Krishna himself explains. So Prabhupada one time was explaining, I believe referring again to his master Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that all the knowledge is there in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, if all the books in the world were to disappear, there would be no loss. Then he went on to explain, if all the books in the world were to burn or disappear, including the Bhagavad Gita, there would still be no loss if the Srimad Bhagavatam is there. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam is containing all the knowledge and so many references are there in the Bhagavad Gita. Then he went on to explain, if all the books in the world disappeared, including the Bhagavad Gita, including the Bhagavatam, still there would be no loss if the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is describing the life and teachings and precepts of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all of the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, all of the essence of the Srimad Bhagavatam is contained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Prabhupada would again explain that the day will come when people all over the world will study Bengali to read the original Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these two languages are most important actually for us, Sanskrit and Bengali. Because Bhagavad Gita is in Sanskrit, Srimad Bhagavatam is in Sanskrit, but the Chaitanya Charitamrita is in Bengali. So these are two most important languages that should be there in the Gurukulas, unfortunately, that we don't have so many of, just a few. Therefore, the importance of establishing Gurukulas. Therefore, the importance of understanding the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is to give to the world something that was never given before, this highest of all transcendental realizations. And therefore, the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to inundate, literally, flood, inundate the entire world with this knowledge of Krishna consciousness, so that people in this age of Kali Yuga can become liberated from the heavy clutches of Maya that are very, very strong in Kali Yuga. So all of us should try to understand how important is the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the mission of Harinam Sankirtan, and how it is meant to bring about a complete change, not only within the hearts of individuals, but actually a complete change within society, a complete change in lifestyle, a complete change in how we look at the world and how we engage ourselves in different activities. So Srila Prabhupada is that faithful representative. He is the spiritual, he is described as the spiritual ambassador. He is actually described in our Vedic literatures and predicted as Mora Senapati, my Senapati Bhakta, Hare Krishna. So, Prashadam should be given if anyone is not able to stay. Thank you very much for coming. And I think it is about this time, appearance of Lord Chaitanya is at this time. So, Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki! We will very soon be seeing the moon rising. This is the moon of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, full moon, and we should be able to have a nice view of that full moon. So let us always remain indebted to our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada for introducing these teachings of Lord Chaitanya and giving all of us and the entire world opportunity to take up to Krishna consciousness and try to give it to as many people as possible around the world as well. Thank you all very much. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Jai Harinam Sankirtan ki, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Samasta Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaura Primanande. Hare Krishna.